Hi everyone, welcome to The Grind. Today we're going to be talking about the message that we heard over the weekend, and it's about missions, and we thought like maybe we'll have Dom join us because this guy is, huge on missions. You often have this guy right behind the camera filming stuff, and today he's right in front of the camera filming stuff. So here we are talking about missions that is close to all of our hearts here. So I think with missions, we've all been on mission trips. So what are reasons that drew you to go on missions?
Do tell, Dom.
Yeah, do tell, Dom.
Man, I was gonna call you out. Missions. I think I was drawn to missions because of my family. From what I know is that my dad was called to missions, and I've been following him with some missions since I was 4. Missions kind of became a culture in my family. It was something that all members of my family felt called to. Like, we all had a sense of ministry, especially to missions. I think the main thing is that we just enjoyed seeing people be blessed.
What's the first? Do you remember the first trip that you went on? Well, that was.
Yeah,
one.
I tried to recall all of them. There was even one where I don't even remember it. Like, my parents would tell me stories of what was happening, and I barely remember it. But
where was that at?
First one was like Thailand when I was like 4 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, and I barely remember that.
Yeah, mine is not like that. I only went on my first missions trip, I think, after university, or just before. And honestly, it was just the appeal of going on a trip with your friends.
Yep.
Like, not very often, especially as someone who was, not quite an independent adult. Your parents going to go, yes, please go overseas with your friends. That sounds like a great idea.
It'll be so much fun.
It's going to be so much fun. But, when you say it's a missions trip, then they're like, literally, please go. So I did one to China, which I didn't understand the gravity of until after we got back.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Like, what shifted gears?
We were doing missions in China where you're not supposed to do missions. And only after I got back, I was like, oh, right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I would say the first mission trip I went on was also after university too. I think growing up, I didn't really care for missions. It's one of those things that it always happened during summer holidays. I was like, oh, sorry, gotta go back to Malaysia to visit the fam. Can't go. Bye. So I didn't really care too much about it, to be very honest, mission trips. But I think what changed it up was when I learned about the 1040 window. I'm not sure if you guys heard about that. But basically, it's like the people groups in this window. I think it's like the latitude and the whatever. That these are the people groups who have not yet heard the gospel, and so there are people dedicated to reach out to these people groups. And then when I learned about that, I was like, wow, actually, there are people out there who really haven't had the opportunity to hear about Jesus, and that sort of like piqued my interest in missions. And then I had friends who were like going on what they call field operations in
sounds so serious.
I know it sounds so serious, but it's not. It is, because basically they dropped off at point A and they're supposed to make it at point B, and they're basically doing it like the actual disciples, where they go door to door and find places to sleep. There is no accommodations whatsoever. They need you to get from point A to point B, decide, make up your mind how you're gonna make that journey. Bye.
We really need to get a ride in the next couple of hours.
I'm just relying on this sign because I haven't got the energy right now to talk to people.
And that's it. And this was like in Turkey, all right?
Wow.
So,
okay.
and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. That's a little bit scary. But I think it definitely drew my interest in missions. And then from then on, I chose to, after uni, to do YWAM, Youth of Mission, which also Don was part of. And but we're in 2 different sectors. So yeah, I think that was my experience of getting into missions, learning about unreached people groups, and then getting myself plugged in to learn more about what does it actually look like to do missions. Yeah. So like for you guys, like, what were some of the highlights of your mission trips?
Going on trips with my friends. Vacation. Yeah.
Okay.
No, honestly, it's like part of the best memories are because you've gone abroad with your friends and like bonded over experiences you definitely would not have had you stayed at home all summer. A lot of it is because you're thrown into a situation where you're just not comfortable. You're doing different things. coming into contact with people you would not meet otherwise, trying to cross language barriers. Like trying to speak Vietnamese was hilarious.
Tell us the phrase,
You can
Nathan.
try,
I
yeah.
can't remember any of
Try,
it
just
now. It was
try,
a long,
just try, just try.
it was a
Okay.
long time ago.
Okay.
I mean, like, yeah, similar. That I love traveling. I love like witnessing and embracing other cultures. But one thing I really enjoy about missions is, I feel this is such a YWAM thing to say, is that, you know, just to see people be blessed, introducing God and like just watching them grow in God. And one thing I realized like after my missions was that I feel a lot of people go to missions for the wrong things. Like they want to feel close to God, and so that's why they do it.
Is it like a Hail Mary thing? Like I'm not getting anything at home, so I might
Yeah,
as well try
exactly. So
something
they
overseas.
feel there's this like yearning that they need to give back to God, and so they choose missions for that.
Right.
But then
Like, it's a dramatic example. of-
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
giving to the local community and then leave the country.
but yeah, like that's a huge leap. And I've heard a lot of people who go onto missions and like they have their own agenda, but then like what I learned is that when you go on missions, you're not there for your own agenda, you're there for God's agenda, like what he has in store, what he wants to bless them with. Like one of the few beliefs that I had wrong the whole time was that I thought us going there that we are the blessing to those people, but actually that's the joy of doing missions with God, is that like both parties benefit, that it's you're blessed to be a blessing.
Yeah, because going on missions, I think what's really cool is like you get to meet different people and also like to see how God is moving in different countries. And I think community is something that I realized has been like, you know, when you go on mission trips with your buddies, it definitely brings your friendship, your relationships to a next level and brings you closer. I think I have learned a lot of key. I had some key takeaways as well. Being on missions, like yes, community is important. Embracing what God is doing in other countries, amazing. And yes, the hunger for God's word is there. And I think it's having to also learn how to adapt and speak to the people there. Like, you know how like Jesus spoke in parables to the people around them, just to really speak the language. You really, I guess I had to also like understand that, right?
Yeah.
Like the way I speak may not necessarily translate well to people in different countries, so doing that as well. But for you guys, what were some like the key lessons that you took away from your mission trips that you've been on?
One of the things that, like I said, it's that you're not going for your agenda, you're going for God's agenda. Same time mission trip was Lebanon, where at the very end we were having this debriefing meeting, and then we were like, I don't feel like we contributed at all, because it was, first of all, it was so tight. Like the people who really received us the most were like gypsies, like I think they called them gypsies. They were just living in like these stone houses. Like they literally take up scraps from the highway and build a house. Like if they were so low and they hungered the most, and so we were like wondering, did we really contribute much when we were here? And then even my leaders were having that struggle. And then I feel God gave me this vision, and then I felt this vision was for my team, and it encourages us all. Was that like in this vision where it's like God said, I want an avalanche, and so we go to the top of a mountain. That's what we do. We just stomp our feet, trying to cause an avalanche. But then no matter how many times we stomp, nothing happened, right? And so we leave the mountain disappointed. But then let's say like later on, another team comes up and they stomp on the mountain and they start the avalanche. Then you see God's will still happen, but then, you know, it wasn't for us to initiate it. Like, but then like if we didn't stomp on it, if my team didn't stomp on it, then the other team probably might not have been able to achieve that outcome. So then that's what I mean by we're following his agenda, that we should have an expectation that we don't see any fruits for what we planted. Like the seeds that we put don't have any expectations. Like it'll be a blessing to see how our efforts paid off. But then I feel that is faith, is that like you're just obeying God and you're not really doing it to see an outcome.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about you.
Exactly.
It's about God.
So things I learned, I definitely learned that God is a lot more capable than the box that I put him in. And I think I learned that because of being so far outside of my comfort zone, being asked to do things that, you know, I would not do at home. I would not even think about doing those things. Like when we got to Vietnam, under the guise of going to teach music, they told us, oh no, everyone's got to share a 20-minute testimony. Surprise!
Also, would love to see that.
And I had not prepared for that at all, like mentally or physically, just like it was not part of anyone's prep on that trip. And some people are more comfortable with it. Some people are like me, just like don't want to do it, right? So, I learned to lean on God a lot more for things, especially for things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. And yeah, I think that just all comes with being outside of your comfort zone. Yeah. And I had just come out of a few years where I had basically depended on myself to do a lot of things. Because being at uni and having to graduate, that's a lot of, like, you have to do a lot of things yourself. And so that was a big refresher for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think learning to depend on God completely on the mission field, that was something that I had to learn too as well. And learning that, you need to be adaptable and flexible. Like sometimes it really is not like, yes, you can prepare as much, but at the end of the day, sometimes you need to throw your plans outside the window. Like you can't be married to your plans because things change and you have to learn to adapt and trust that, even though, yes, you may be prepared, maybe have it all sorted in your mind, but hey, let it go. God's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And so I think.
Yeah, I like what you said about the box also, because I feel that's something I also learned that I tend to put God in the box in the sense of where like I saw God work once in this method, so then I always want to try use this method. So then when God works in another method, I say, oh, that's not how God worked last time, so that's probably not God.
Yeah.
And I think that's putting God in the box.
Yeah, for sure.
And like a really good movie reference I think is like the second Narnia, with the one with Prince Caspian. I don't know if you remember, but like at the very end, like Lucy was like talking to Aslan. I was like, oh, how come you didn't come help us like you did before? And then Aslan was like, doesn't work that way.
Right.
Why wouldn't you show yourself? Why couldn't you come roaring in and save us like last time?
Things never happen the same way twice, dear one.
But speaking of like, yes, we learn different lessons, but also sometimes we learn lessons in the midst of like challenges as well. What are some of like the challenges or hardships that you guys faced on mission trips?
I think the hardest one for me was I had a lot of physical hard ones. Like Lebanon was terrible. It was like so hard to sleep. It was just too hot. But I feel
oh no, you couldn't sleep, too hot. Oh no.
But I think the hardest one was actually one that you bring up a lot, was our Cambodia one.
Oh, okay.
So quick recap, like Cambodia was where we worked with an organization called AIM, where they work with like human trafficking. And one of the places they brought us was one of these, like, what do you call it?
To be clear though, we're not working with human traffickers. We're working with an anti-human trafficking organization.
It's really important
to
make that distinction.
My bad.
Carry on, dog. I just wanted to make sure that
AIM
for
is
the
organization fighting against human
that.
trafficking. Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyways, and one of the places they brought us was, I think they called it like the Pink Room or something like that.
Yes.
Where it used to be a brothel where they and they bring you in where it almost looks like a prison, like small cells. But I feel that's the cool part about that, is that they actually kept that part as like a testament to how they've progressed, because they transformed that brothel into like a anti-trafficking
place.
Exactly. And so, but then that was so like I remember I was just spiritually tired. I was like, oh my gosh, really? I think this is just discovering like the underbelly of how dark humans can be sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it was like it was not a nice sight to see.
The things that I found challenging actually are nothing really like specific to missions. I feel like it's just stuff that you come across in daily life, but is maybe amplified by the fact that you are not at home or something. Like working with different personalities, and I'm not talking about like within our own team. Like you go there, you're working with different hosts, different people. Sometimes there's like culture clashes, and maybe there's like, for example, we worked with another organization, not local, but the people there just had a really different way of operating. Yeah. But I think that's all solved because you have no one else.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out a way to like
And you have
coexist.
to learn how to depend on God as
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
in those times too.
Yeah.
So this sounds like a very first world problem. But yeah, yes, sometimes being the surroundings that you find yourself in can be a bit of a challenge. Like, you know, you're used to like your own bed and comfort and stuff like that. I think
And you had to go at him for not being able to sleep in the heat.
I thought you were gonna say like you struggled finding coffee or something.
I mean, that was a struggle too, but it's okay. It's okay. No, I think this one's a challenge because we went into like the middle of the jungle, like the interiors in Malaysia. So we could take 8 hours to get into there. The place it has a power generator and the power shuts off at 11 p.m. I think I was struggling because I've never seen insects that big and that grotesque in image. So and you know how when I see like stuff, I can be a little bit iffy about, you know, little bugs. You know, I have to keep it all together, especially since I'm leading a team, right? So if I lose it, everyone's gonna lose it. So while the rest of the kids are all like running around like screaming and stuff like that, I'm like, it's okay.
But you are internally screaming.
I am internally screaming. I'm internally like, so like when we're sleeping in the long house, like I'm zipping the sleeping bag all the way up so nothing gets in, because that was a challenge for me. But yeah, I have learned a lesson that I learned is to keep it all together when stuff doesn't go your way or you don't see things that you like.
Don't give in to your first impulses.
Yes, don't give in to my first
It's like
impulses.
the meme. I'm like, this is fine.
Yeah, literally, this is fine as everything
Just
is done.
replace the fire with bugs.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think one thing that Pastor Peter was talking about was also like teamwork was important in missions, right? So how have you seen that reflect in the mission trips that you've been on?
Well, the mission trips that I've been on they would all be impossible without working as a team, like whether internally our own group
Yeah.
or without working with the hosts that set everything up
Yeah.
for us. Like I mentioned China before, right? Like I said, I didn't know what was going on, but the people there, like they have to set up shop in a way that is very specifically not breaking any rules, but still being able to share the message. And for us, you know, coming from Hong Kong or from wherever these people came from, we all had to learn to like get on board with all of that and share the message in the way that was okay. Same with like all my other worship centric ones. Like if we don't work as a team, like how we set up the curriculum or how we go about teaching the lessons, or just like relating to the worship teams there, like if we were all to like go and do our own thing, chaos.
Yeah.
Just absolute chaos.
Like it wouldn't all work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was on missions with YWAM, like when we were with this particular base for about 3 weeks, and after we left, they're like saying, "Oh wow, I think one thing that we really appreciate about you guys is how united you guys are. Like you guys' unity was really tight." I was like, "Oh wow, that's really encouraging. Thank you." So I think even though you may not necessarily say like, "Oh, we are a united team," but I think what we do and the actions, I think really can also carry a lot in a way, like also impact and leave a positive influence on the people that you're working with, you know, and in a way they have that trust, like, hey, if this team has everything together, then to work with, like, basically I would trust their ministry, I would work with them, and you can do further, like go further with the things that you do. So I think unity and teamwork goes a long way.
Pet, you just mentioned YWAM.
Yeah.
Dom, you've done YWAM.
Yeah.
Overseas missions.
Yeah.
But so that's what you were very used to, right? But we've just been through a period of 3 years where no one left the country, which meant no short-term missions, no overseas missions.
Mentally,
So yeah, like how has your image of missions changed since then to now?
Actually, to also bounce off what I just said about leading by example, for me, ministry here is that there was this one kid that I ministered to, and I literally met this guy through video games, and he was trash talking me, and only till I met him in person, like I tried to minister to him. It took me a while to realize that it wasn't through like preaching or like telling him what's right and wrong that actually preached the gospel, but it was actually just me just loving on the guy. Like we would like go back when we had this burger joint, Big Bite. We would just go there after our youth group, and we just stayed to like 11 or 12 just chatting, and it was just me just loving on the guy. And I think it took like us like over like 2-3 years till the guy finally said, okay, I want to believe in Jesus, because he saw how me and my friends were treating him. And yeah, that's why I'm such a strong believer in like, you know, living by example. Let your actions do the speaking.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, yeah, for sure. Living by your, like, living the talk, right? Not just saying one thing and acting a different way. I think that hurts a person more than you think. So living by example. And then also, I mean, there are local opportunities. Like, our local community needs to know Jesus too, and it's not just having to leave the country to go there. Yeah. And I think for a while I was involved with, and I think I mentioned this before, sons and daughters, when there are women who are also trafficked to Hong Kong, and they were in a way stranded here, right? Because they can't leave the country to go back to the countries, or in a way trafficking was stopped because no women can come into Hong Kong. But what was sad was that then because, you know, with COVID, women were out of jobs in Hong Kong, so then they turned to prostitution or things like this to get a job because they had no monies, and that was sad. So I think the organization reached out to women like via Zoom and stuff like that, and I know like my interactions weren't as much as before, but I think just doing the bit that I can just to help out, like whether it be Bible study or, you know, or whatnot, just be involved that way, because the local community still needs to experience the love of God.
So that's very much like, would you call it like local missions?
I suppose so, yeah.
So do you think there's anything we can do to sort of shift the mindset that missions is only overseas? Yeah,
for sure.
Now, how would you go about doing that?
I mean, honestly, it's like, you know, evangelism isn't supposed to be just like, oh, we just, you know, from, you know, in the month of July, we're going to go here, we're going to do that. But really, it's an everyday lifestyle. It's like, how are you bringing Jesus to your workplace? How are you bringing Jesus to your sphere of influence? And I think we heard that, like, God can use absolutely anyone, anywhere. You know, so it's a matter of, like, walking the lifestyle.
Yeah, Don, I like what you said about essentially just putting in the hard work over, like, a number of years to reach one person. But then, like, to God, that one person is like everything. Right?
Like the whole, you know, story of like how he left behind the 99 to go for that one. I mean, that's literally it. Is, you know, you may say something the person doesn't receive, you may say something the other person doesn't receive, but I may say something and the person may receive. It's not because of me, it's just because the seed was sown. It's just timing and everything in God's timing. I think it's mindset shift to think that missions, it's not just overseas, but it really is just an everyday thing that we want to reach out to people wherever we are at, by literally just being who God has called us to be.
Boom, and there's our soundbite. We're done.
Okay. Yes.
No, just kidding.
And on that note, I think we are done. You know, I know it's lame when people say, oh yeah, we're Acts 29 church because Acts doesn't stop at 28. You know, we keep going on.
Do they say it like that too?
Exactly that way. But I mean, there is truth in that, is that, you know, the book of Acts is still going. The work of the you know, apostles is still going. And I think it is a beauty that we get to be partnering with God in that work. So I think let's continue to, I guess, write chapter, well, it's not 29 now, it's probably like multiple chapters right now, but like just keep on writing the book of Acts because it's still going. You know, Acts didn't stop back in the day. I mean, the disciples, I love what it says in Acts that the disciples turned the world upside down. And likewise, I think we can turn the world upside down for Jesus. So it's a good series. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.